Good afternoon, Commissioners. Pete Bowman, Bureau Planning staff again. As noted, this is the hearing for the final EIR of the Waterfront Ballpark District project. As also mentioned, this hearing is not intended for input or discussion on the merits of the project. As I also mentioned earlier, future hearings will be held before the Planning Commission on the file development applications, which I'll discuss in more detail shortly. The project site encompasses approximately 55 acres, including the Howard Terminal property at the port. The proposal includes the new Major League ballpark that'll seat up to 35,000 individuals. And it also includes adjacent mixed-use development that would include up to 3,000 housing units, 1.5 million square feet of office, 270,000 square feet of retail, 400 hotel rooms, a performance venue with capacity of up to 3,500 individuals, and approximately 18.3 acres of publicly accessible open space. The proposal included a study for a maritime reservation scenario, in which I will show here momentarily, which was studied as a alternate site plan or alternate reduced site area consistent with the term sheet approved by the port. This is in which the port may terminate approximately 10 acres in order to accommodate a future expanding turning basin. And one point I just wanted to clarify, and receiving a lot of comments on the draft EIR, there may have been some confusion to this. The maritime reservation scenario is not the turning base project itself. The purpose of that is because if the port takes back that maximum of 10 acres or something in between, the intent of including this within the EIR was to demonstrate any other potential impacts that would result of the same development program pushed within a smaller project site and what that would look like. The turning basin project will be a completely separate project that the port is independently pursuing at this point in time. They've got studies ongoing with the Army Corps of Engineers as we speak. And the resulting site area could be anything from up to 10 acres to potentially much less. So this is really just demonstrating what that maximum take would be. And then if it's less, then it would be redistributed across a larger site than is shown in the image before you. Project description also included two potential, what were referred to as project variants. And that included an aerial gondola, which would connect down Washington Street between the convention center down to Jack London Square along Washington. That at this point in time, there is no application that has been filed for this. This continues to just be a potential project that the A's could pursue down the road. The other variant was what was referred to as the peaker plant variant. And this is the power plant facility that's currently on the site, both the building and the tank site. And under that scenario, the peaker plant structure could be converted into a battery storage facility, and a portion of the western wing would be trimmed back in order to provide a greater space for Athletics Way as it proceeds up Water Street into Athletics Way, encircling the ballpark. At this point in time, the A's do not have site control over that property, and that's why it's still considered only a project variant and not part of the project. So back to the focus of this hearing is to receive a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council on certification of the EIR, and that's going to be based upon the certification findings attached to the staff report. Given no project approvals are before the Planning Commission, the additional CEQA findings required for project approvals will be included for consideration by the City Council at the hearing for the EIR certification, along with the ordinance for the shared jurisdictional authority between the city and port, being that would be the first project-related approval. The legislation to be considered by City Council is pursuant to the city charter, which is why this matter is not within the purview of the Planning Commission, as I discussed previously. Just to touch on the project entitlement process, if I can back out here real quick.
And Pete, to Commissioner Shirazi's question as well, please go slow on this process. This is very complex and there's a lot of moving parts. You know it exceptionally well. So thanks for the graphic and keep going.
Hopefully I'm pacing myself. So as previously mentioned, the project site is within both the city and port jurisdiction, which necessitates the legislation for the shared regulatory authority. As I'd also mentioned earlier, this was anticipated in the port board resolution approving the term sheet with the A's, which is shown on this visual, which occurred back in 2019, I believe. The ENA that was entered into was back in 2018. Further, in January of 2020, the City Council approved a resolution to execute a non-binding MOU between the city and port. This allowed the city to accept and begin review of the development applications under the planning code. Currently, the filed applications include a plan unit development, which includes a preliminary development plan and the related design guidelines. That actually appeared before the Planning Commission the Design Review Committee of the Planning Commission for comments earlier this year as well. The filings also include a tentative track map and a development agreement. And this is in addition to the required general plan amendment and rezoning. As I mentioned, no actions on these applications can occur until the adoption of the legislation for the shared regulatory authority. And this is why the entitlements are being bifurcated from the EIR certification process. As mentioned, the development applications will appear before the Planning Commission at a future date, and this will be the time to discuss the project merits on everything within those applications, and it'll be before the Planning Commission for recommendation to the City Council, who is also the decision-making body in that case as well. Concurrently, the port is also reviewing the port building permit, sometimes referred to as a port permit or port development permit. That's been filed with the port, and no action on that can take place at this time as well, so that's still pending. The port will also be responsible for consideration of a trust settlement exchange agreement, as well as an option agreement related real estate transaction documents. This is where what a lot of folks talk about with the seaport compatibility measures. That's the document that those measures would be attached to. In addition to the city and port approvals, the project will also require approvals from other state agencies, including BCDC, State Lands Commission, DTSC, as well as CPUC for any railroad crossings that have been discussed in the mitigation measures within the draft EIR and the EIR document. Bringing back to the EIR process, just to go through the timeline of events, the A's had filed for the request for environmental review back in late 2018. Shortly after that, the city issued the notice of preparation, or NOP. This began the comment period for determining the scope of the EIR. During this public comment period, there were scoping sessions held between both the Landmarks Preservation Advisory Board and the Planning Commission. The EIR document was also prepared pursuant to AB 734, which is state legislation adopted for this project. That process set forth specific project requirements, including but not limited to project achieving no net new greenhouse gas emissions, as well as processing requirements. This also, the benefit to the A's in this matter, why they pursued this, was because it provides a timeline limitation on any legal challenges on the environmental document. However, it doesn't address timelines for our review of these of the document. The draft EIR was published in February of 2021. Per the AB 734 process requirements, the city held a public workshop, and this was in March of 2021. And the purpose of this was to walk through all the key findings of the draft EIR. So we held this on a Saturday, and it was included as part of the notice availability for the document so that people could attend. If I recall, I think there may have been approximately 200 attendees for that. Once again, that was to walk through the key findings of the draft environmental document and really to kind of explain where to find information within that document to assist folks in finding information, providing public comments. The comment period for the draft EIR was also extended out to 60 days, and hearings were held before both the Landmarks Board and the Planning Commission. The draft EIR identified a number of significant and unavoidable impacts on wind within the aesthetics chapter, air quality, cultural resources, noise, and transportation related to the level of service on Caltrans segments. The draft EIR also identified project alternatives that would reduce impacts. Some of these were to less than significant, and some were just reducing but not completely eliminating those impacts. The alternatives that were included beyond the no project alternative, which is a requirement under CEQA, included the offsite alternative at the Coliseum site, the project as proposed, but with a grade separation. And this is a vehicular grade separation connecting to the site, as well as a reduced project alternative that included the same site plan area, but reduced the amount of development that would be going into that. And that was primarily focused on the target of reducing the air quality impacts associated. During the draft EIR comment period, including all the public hearings that we held on it, the city received in excess of 400 comments. The city then prepared the response to comments and final EIR, which was published in December of last year, or just last month, December 17th. The document provides responses to all the 400 plus comments that were received. The document also includes a chapter that has 23 consolidated responses to a number of frequently raised topics. Finally, I provided updated project information, which included but not limited to an update to the description of the affordable housing program, which was consistent with the adopted city council term sheet. Also, a change in the description of the remediation process with DTSC to a RAP from a RAW. And the difference of the two processes is really more just related to process. A RAP is required when a cleanup estimate exceeds a certain dollar amount, and it also has more public participation and notice involved than that of a RAW. It also identified modification to the peaker plant variant, where initially there was a proposal as part of that project variant to remove portions of both wings of the building. At this point, that was updated where it'll only remove a portion of only the western wing, and it would not modify any other portion of the facility. Finally, EIR included approximately 300 pages of updates to the draft EIR, which included updates to the air quality mitigations in response to comments received, including CARB and the Air District. It expanded the explanation of the required site remediation process. And it also included updates to the rail safety mitigation, which expanded the at-grade crossing improvements that were proposed from the mitigation, which previously stopped at Broadway from the project site, and extended those improvements all the way west to Oak Street. The final EIR also included a draft MMRP in the appendix, and that's a mitigation monitoring reporting plan. This is just a draft at this point. And the final EIR did not include significant new information that required recirculation. So I'll go ahead and conclude with the presentation, and staff is requesting that the commission move the item forward to City Council with a recommendation to certify the EIR based upon the certification findings included in section 6 of attachment A to the staff report. And before I hand it back, I just did want to note that since there's no project approvals before the commission today, the applicant will not be giving a presentation. However, I do believe that Dave Caffel is present to represent on the A's behalf, and I believe he would like to speak just very shortly on the item. Also to note that there are representatives from ESA, who are the city's environmental consultants on the project. And as questions arise later, we may turn to them for more technical matters for a response. Thank you.